to the OklaRoots YouTube channel. In today's tutorial, we are wrapping up the Cotton Cut Spring 2021 Sparkle and Shine Mystery Quilt by finishing the large quilt top that went with that mystery block of the month. Well, not block of the month, but the mystery quilt things of the month. So we already wrapped up the small quilt top, so if you haven't checked that out, I'll have a link down below. And then we did the large quilt top as well as the small quilt top as we were going through every month. And so now we just need to finish up the large quilt top. This is gonna be big and this is gonna take some time. So today here in Florida, it's a little chilly, it's a little rainy, it's a kind of like a Monday. So I feel like it's a good day to just spend a few hours building a quilt top. I always love when I do this. I'm really excited how this one comes together. The small one, the way we use the fabrics and stuff like that create a really cool design. So since the large is a totally different colorway, I'm excited to see how all these fabrics work together. Cotton Cuts has all kinds of sew-alongs and quilt-alongs and mystery quilts and things like that, so I'll have their website listed down below. I've had a few of you reach out and ask if I'm doing any of the mystery quilts that are being hosted by Cotton Cuts in 2022, and I am not, unfortunately. I do not have a quilt pattern, quilt-along planned for 2022 at this time. However, that could change, so make sure you follow me on social media, and I will update you if I find a quilt pattern that we want to work on over the year, or if I design my own once again. I know that the OklaRoots block party was a really, really fun quilt-along, so I would love to design my own quilt again, but at this time, there are no plans for quilting in 2022. Hopefully that will change. So if you're new to the OklaRoots YouTube channel, please consider clicking subscribe down below. If at any point you like this video, please give it a like. Any questions, comments, shoutouts, anything at all, leave them down in the comment section. If you have been making a quilt with the spring sparkle and shine, I don't even know all the words anymore. If you've been making the same quilt as me, let me know how it's going. Let me know if you finished it. Let me know if you're stuck on one of the months. I know a few of you guys have said that you got busy with life, and so you're like, you gotta catch up. I totally understand. That's what's great about quilts and stuff like that, is you can kind of just fold them all up, put them in a bin, put them to the side, come back to them when you need to. You don't have to finish it all right away. All right, guys, let's get started and wrap up this large quilt. So here we go. Here are all of the months. Month 1, I didn't put back in a bag, so I just have to remember that's month 1. But all the other months, you can see I put them back in their bags, which is how we want it. And then month 10 here has all the borders and sashing and things like that. And we did that with the small quilt top, so I'm assuming that's what it is. We're probably gonna use this one last. I'm gonna put that to the side. All right, so I'm just gonna dive right into the pattern, and the first things we're gonna be working with are sections 4B and 5A. So we gotta find, here's 5, and then month 4. Okay, those are what we're gonna work on first. And since I didn't label the A's and the B's, I kind of have to just look at the picture to make sure I'm doing this right. So 5A goes in the middle, and this looks like it is 5A. So this is probably 5B. Whatever I'm not using, I'm just gonna put it right back in its bag and then put the bag to the side. So then from 4, we want 2 4Bs for the top and the bottom. So let's find our 4Bs. This doesn't look like that. It looks like 4B is this. Ooh, these sleeves are gonna get in the way, aren't they? Let's roll them up. Ooh, wait. So we're gonna have something like this. I'm gonna try to get as much of this stuff in the shot as possible. The quilt is going to get big though. All right, so I'm gonna take the other 4 units and put them back in the bag. So this is what we have currently. That's cool, it's like a pretty star. Isn't that neat? I love that. So I'm gonna grab my pins, and we're going to pin along the top and bottom edges of this 5A piece. You can see we do have some seams that match up, so the seams should be pressed in opposite directions. Let's take a look. So I'm gonna take this top piece and lay it right side down. And the seams should be going in opposite directions. So it looks like these outer seams are going in opposite directions, but the seams around the triangle are not. So we'll just have to do our best to get that all worked out. So I'm working on the top edge right now. It doesn't really matter. It's the same on the top and the bottom. You know, this doesn't matter really how you flip it. It's the same. But I'm gonna flip down this top edge real quick, and I'm just gonna line up all the seams. So I'm not really lining up corner to corner. I'm just lining up seams here. So once I get a seam lined up, I grab a pin and I pin it together. To save time, I'm gonna sew these both on at the same time. Now you can see this is the same size, so it would be very easy to accidentally sew in edges that we don't want to. So I'm gonna just fold this up. The side is already pinned. I'm just gonna fold it up like that. And I'm gonna take the bottom edge here, fold this down, And I'm gonna pin this right sides together on the bottom edge of my center unit 5 rectangle. Again, matching up the seams versus just the corners. Okay, so now you can see I can pull this out of the way just like that. And just one thing you want to remember when you're sewing along this edge here is just to not let this other edge tuck in there. As long as you fold things out of the way, you'll be fine. So let's sew along both of these pinned edges at a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, once you have these sewn together, you're gonna press the seam behind the 5A center block, just like this. This pressing mat, from step 1, my pressing mat is too small. Oy, oy, oy. So just make sure you press the seam behind the center 5A rectangle on both the top and the bottom. Now some of these seams get really bulky. You can tell whenever your seams don't go in opposite directions, they get very, very bulky. All right, here's where we're at. Now I have some unevenness here that I would really like to clean up, but I have been told by cotton cuts before to not clean up these edges. So I am going to make a judgment call, and I'm just gonna grab a rotary cutter and a ruler, and I have to clean up some of this edge because this is gonna be very frustrating to piece without cleaning it up. So now you're gonna grab your bag from month 6, and we're gonna line these up on the sides here. So remember, this is the top and this is the bottom. I know it's easy to kind of rotate this around, but try to keep it the way that the pattern suggests. So the top and the bottom that we just sewed on, and then you're gonna grab your month 6, and they're gonna go on the side, so on the left and the right. So I can just show you one at a time because this is so big. So you have your long strips here and then like your little diamonds. The diamonds go out and the strips go right up against your center block. So I'm just gonna pin these together one at a time. So I'm gonna take the left side over here and fold it right sides together. There are a couple of seams here that we can match up, so let's do that. Let's match up those seams first. Are they going in opposite directions? No, they're not going in opposite directions, so it's gonna be a little bulky. It looks like our top seams are going in opposite directions, so that's good. Okay, so once you have the left side pinned on, let's grab the right side and do the same thing. So we're just gonna lay this along the edge just like that. I know my stuff's a little wrinkled, I'm okay with that. And then let's fold this right sides together. Make sure that long rectangle is the one you're pinning to the side over here. And then line up the seams. Okay, now let's take this to the sewing machine and we're gonna sew along these 2 pinned edges at a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then take your block and lay it so that the newly added rectangles over here are wrong side up. And we're gonna press the seam behind those side rectangles. So these are the left and the right big blocks we just added. So just press this up so that the seam goes behind those sides. This is so big already. Oh my goodness. But it seems like all of our blocks that we're piecing together are already big, so it shouldn't be a whole lot of work today. This should actually go fairly quickly since we're not piecing all the little bits together right now. We're just piecing big bits. Okay, go ahead and set this to the side for just a moment. Now grab bags 8 and 9. So from bag 8, you have these 4 squares, and from bag 9, you should have 2 rectangles. So let's just work on one at a time. Take your block 9 so that the rectangle portions are on the bottom. So you have your squares and your rectangle here. And then you're gonna grab 2 of your 8 squares. Make sure you pay attention to how this goes. You should have your little D triangle coming down here. So let's just do one side at a time because again, I can't fit it all on the screen. So this is how it should look. So on the left side here, you have your rectangle here on the bottom middle piece, and then on the square over here, your little half square triangle, that's the same color as right here. This is pointing down. Just look at the diagram. Now let's flip these right sides together and match up those seams and pin together along this edge. Okay, so we have the left side on. Let's do the right side. So let's grab another one of these blocks, and this time, this is upside down. This time, that little half square triangle, for me that's that pink, that's gonna go down towards the bottom left. Remember over here, it went down towards the bottom right. We want it to kind of whoop, like a V, right? So get that lined up and just double check your diagram. And then flip these right sides together and line up the seams first. There's 2 seams here. Line up those first, pin those, and then line up the rest of the edge. All right, once you have both of these pinned on, we're gonna repeat that with the other block 9 and the 2 block 8. So just repeat that exact same process with your other 3 units here. All right, now we're gonna take our 2 units to the sewing machine and sew along both of the edges at a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, so for these ones, you're gonna press the seam behind the center rectangle. So just lay this so that the center long rectangle is wrong side up. Give it a press along that seam and then open it up. Just use your fingers to make sure that the seam goes behind the center rectangle. So do this on both sides for both of your blocks. All right, now we're definitely gonna run out of some room on this table. So you're gonna take one of your strips that you just made and we're gonna put it on the top so that the rectangle is on the bottom, just like this. And then you're gonna grab that center strip we were working on. Oh, it's upside down. And you're gonna lay it out like this. So you see how these, it's kind of boxes it in like that. You see that? The rectangles go like this, the rectangles, you see what I'm saying? I mean, you can't really see the whole thing because I don't think my camera will go up that high, but we're just gonna focus on one seam at a time. So let's work on this top and middle strip. Line it all up so it's like this. Your rectangle should kind of meet up in a corner like that, and then fold the top strip right side down and line up those seams. So we have seams right here, and right here. Just line up the seams as best you can. Pin those together first, and then we'll pin the rest of it. All right, so I have that top added, so now I'm just gonna rotate the whole thing around and I'm going to pin the bottom. So grab your remaining unit that you made, and once again, the rectangle part of this bottom unit needs to be coming right against the edge like this. So we're making like a little boxed in design here, right? So line that up like it's supposed to be, nice and centered, and then flip it right side down. And then just like you did on the other side, match up the seams and pin it all together. Alrighty, I've got the top and the bottom pinned in place. Now I'm just gonna sew both of these down at a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. My little pressing pad is just kind of comical now with how big this is already getting. And we still have so many bags to go through. Oh my goodness. So we're gonna press, what did we just sew? We're gonna press the seam behind these outside strips we just sewed on. So just give it a good press once like that. And then you can just flip it up and finger press the seam behind the top strip. So I just check it with my fingers first, and then I press it with the iron. So do this for both of the strips you just added. All right, now take this mini quilt, put it to the side. So now grab your bag 2. And you're gonna take sections 2A and 2B and add them together. So you're gonna take one of your 2B blocks and lay it like this so it's like a little triangle. And then you're gonna take a 2B block and put one on each side, just like this. And so you're gonna make kind of a long strip like that. So then let's pin these together. So just take one of your outer units and lay it right sides together with your inner unit. Okay, so I have the left side added, and I'm gonna do the right side. And somehow these seams, there's only one seam on each side, and they're not going in opposite directions. All right, you're gonna make 2 units like this. You can see they kind of overlap, so just make sure you don't let one overlap into the seam of the other one and sew it that way. So make 2 of these. All right, now let's take both of these to the sewing machine and sew along the edges at a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once you have these sewn on, you're gonna press the seam behind those outer double rectangles. So just the little outer strips here. All right, once you have both of these strips all pressed, let's set them to the side. Okay, so take your remaining 2B blocks and you're gonna grab your month 5 and 4 bags. And you want your 5, so you want the 5 blocks and the 4 blocks. Let's see how this goes. All right, so I feel like we're gonna have to have this in a specific order. Oh boy. So you're going to take a 5B block, and just look at the photo for orientation here. And then a 2B block, like this. And then those are gonna go together on the left side. So let's just pin those together real quick. Let's flip it right sides together and pin. Okay, so I have the 5B and 2B blocks pinned over here on the left. I'm just gonna move the 5B. I'm just gonna fold back the 5B block, and now I'm gonna grab my 4A block. Oh boy. And we're gonna attach the 4A block on the right side. You see? It has to do with orientation here. So let's do that. And then just pin these together, right sides together. All right, so this strip is ready to be sewn. Let's just repeat that with the other remaining 3 pieces. So remember, it goes 5B, 2B, 4A. There we go, just pin them together. All right, so take both of these units and we're gonna go to the sewing machine and sew along all 4 pinned edges at a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. Just make sure you don't let any other edges kind of flop into the seam. You shouldn't have a problem with that by now. Once those are sewn together, let's just press towards the outer blocks. So lay your unit so that the outer block is wrong side up. Give it a press on the back on the seam, and then just finger press that seam so it goes towards those outer blocks. If you want to press your block a little bit too, you can do that. I don't worry too much about keeping everything really flat because I have to mush all of this around so much to fit on my table and to fit on my sewing machine. It gets wrinkled right away. I'll give the whole thing a really good press in the end, and then, you know, I'll fold it up and put it away. So I'll have to give it another good press before I, you know, finish the quilt. All right, let's set these to the side for just a moment. We're gonna make our quilt top very big now. Okay, so grab your center quilt top. Now let's figure out where the top and the bottom and the sides are. So I think it goes like this. This is the top and this is the bottom. The only way I know that is because of the center block. You can see in the diagram, these are my A blocks. So the A's go up and down like that. So what I'm working on right now is the left and the right sides. Move everything out of the way. Okay, so let's work on the left side first. We're gonna grab the unit that we made 2 steps ago. So it's this one right here that has the, I think it was 2B, and I don't remember, but yeah, this one right here that has the rectangles on the side, but it doesn't have the little square on the end. Okay, so this was about 2 steps ago. And we're going to lay it on the left side. Oh, you just can't see it, can you? So we're gonna line it up. It should be the exact same length as the left side of your quilt. So first things first, line up these triangles here so that the seams match up. And let's flip this right sides together. Matching up those triangles first. Grab your pins and pin these together, right sides together. Okay, so I pinned these triangles first, and then I'm gonna move up towards the top. And I don't have any more seams on this side strip right here, so all I'm gonna do is just pull it all the way up to the top corner and then pin together. All right, so now I'm gonna pull this down. I'm gonna do the same thing on the bottom over here. So I already have my center triangles pinned, so I'm just gonna pull the bottom edge down and line up this bottom left corner really well, and then pin together. Okay, so the left side is pinned. Let's work on the right side. So let's go all the way to the right side. You can grab your other strip from 2 steps ago, and first thing, just make sure the triangles are oriented in the right direction. So just like this, our little pyramid points away from the center. And now let's flip them right sides together and line up those triangles first. Go ahead and pin those triangles together. And then just like we did on the other side, pin all the way up to the top by just kind of stretching this out to reach that corner. You shouldn't be stretching. It should naturally go up there. They should be pretty much the same size, if not exactly close enough. And then just do the same thing on the bottom. So once you have the left and right sides pinned, we're gonna take this to the sewing machine and just sew along these 2 long edges at a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. Alrighty, once you have those sides attached, we're gonna press the seam behind those outside edges. Make sure you know which seam you're working on here. I just had it the wrong way. So we're gonna lay it out like this. We're gonna press it from the back and then flip that outside edge up so that you can just kind of finger press the seam behind it. And just go section by section and just press it down. Go ahead and repeat this for the other side as well. Okay, so relay this all out so that you have it, you know, the top is here, the sides are here. I know you can't see much of it, but this is how it goes. Again, I always look right here for that. Now we're gonna add the top and bottom sections. So we're gonna grab those, and once again, the pyramid faces out, like that. Look at that, isn't that cool? It's like a whoop, whole pyramid, I like that. So always starting in the center, I'm gonna flip these right sides together and line up these triangles first and then pin out to the right edges. So once you have the top pinned on, you're gonna pull this whole thing up, rotate it around, get to the bottom, and then grab your other piece and line that up with your little pyramids over here in the center. There we go. And flip it right sides together. All right, I've got both the top and the bottom pinned. You can't see much of anything, can you? I'm sorry. So now we're gonna just sew along these long pinned edges at a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. I know it's getting big, but we're getting there. We just have a few more outer strips to go. So take your newly added top and bottom strips, and we're going to press the seam behind the strips. So just lay your quilt top with those strips wrong side up, and then let's flip those outer edges up over the seam Once you have that long edge pressed up, just repeat that for the other side. So bottom or the top, depending on which way you look at it, I guess. Okay, so now you need months 3 and 7, and we're just about done. Just have a few more strips to make this quilt real big. All right, which one was which? This was 3, I believe, and this was 7. Oh boy, oh boy. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how it was. So you're gonna grab a section 3, and you're gonna attach it to the left of section 7. So when they come together, it should be just like this. Just look at your diagram to make sure this is right. They pretty much look mirrored to one another. They look like a mirror image. So go ahead and attach a 3 and a 7, connecting them like that. And let's flip this right sides together. And then grab your pins and pin them together. And you're gonna do this for all of your 3 and 7 blocks, so you're gonna make 8 of these total. All right, once you have all 8 of them pinned, let's just sew along all those edges at a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, once you have them all sewn together, it says to press to the left, but I honestly don't remember which way this goes. I'm gonna look at my diagram here. So fabric D is my pink, and that is on the bottom. So I'm gonna press towards this side. So if you need to, just make sure you grab this and do it. So I'm gonna have that left side on top, give it a press, and then finger press, and use the iron to just get this nice and flat. I'm going to flatten out some of these wrinkles as well. So do this for all 8 of them. So once you have all of these combos made, you're gonna take 2 of them and trying to make sure you keep it all in the right orientation. You're going to attach 2 of them together just like that. So now you just have 4 of them attached in the exact same manner. So we're gonna do that, and we're gonna make a total of 4 strips like this now. So we're just making them longer. So just flip them right sides together, just like you did when they were smaller blocks, and just connect them on that center triangle and pin together. We're just building these blocks to create these nice big, like sashings. Grab another 2. Okay, now take your 4 long strips and sew along these pinned edges at a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, once again, we press to the left. So I just make sure my pink triangle's on the bottom here, and then press and open it up and press again. Do this for all 4 strips. I know these are pretty long because it's a pretty big quilt. All right, now grab your strip, make sure you're laying it the right way. So for me, that means pink triangles. Oh dear, so for the, this is gonna be a little bit tricky to figure out which way is the right way. So for me, it's like this. I have pink triangles on the top and the middle, and then pink triangles on the bottom. It's gonna look fine no matter what you do, but if you want to keep it correct, just make sure you double check the diagram. So I'm gonna lay it like that. Now I'm pretty sure we open up this, I think. Okay, so these shortest blocks that were in your month 10 bag, those are the ones we're working on. So grab one of those. You can press it if you'd like. I'm not going to. And what we want to do is we want to add this to the bottom of this piece that we just made. Now, these white pieces for me should be longer than this border. So you can trim it down if you want. I like to trim it down after I attach it. So I'm going to take it and I'm gonna lay my A border strip on the bottom of my pieced block and then just pin it right sides together. Okay, so I have overhang on both sides of my A block, and that's okay. I'll trim all this down after I sew it together. So repeat this for all 4 of these long piece strips and the 4 shortest A blocks as well that were in month 10's bag. All right, once you have all 4 of your strips pinned, we're just gonna sew along all these long edges at a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. So once you have these strips sewn on, what you're going to do is just press the seam behind that A strip. So for me, that A strip is the white strip. So I'm just going down this whole sashing. These are the last major sashings for your quilt. So these are the longest pieces that you're going to be sewing. Just press it when it's closed and then finger press it open to push the seam behind the A unit. And you can see that my A blocks are longer than the rest of the sashing. I'm going to trim those down in just a moment. So once these strips are nicely pressed, what I do is grab a ruler and just line it up along the edge of the strip. And I use that seam also to help me get it all squared up. And then I just trim down the excess from that A block. So I'll do this to both sides of all 4 strips. So now grab 2 of the strips you just made and all 4 blocks from month 1. And we're gonna add 1 block on each end of 2 of these strips. So the big thing here is just to make sure you have the orientation correct. So we have the A block on the bottom, and then over here on the right side, I have my pink blocks on the top and the right, just like this. So then fold them right sides together and pin them right sides together. You only have 1 seam here to match up. And then let's go over to the left side. So go all the way down to the left side. And then grab another month number 1 block and line it up. So for me again, it's the pink goes on the top and the left this time. And then just pin them right sides together. Repeat this for a second strip in the other 2 blocks from month 1. Okay, let's take both of these units to the sewing machine and sew along all 4 pinned edges at a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. So once these are sewn on, the directions say to press the seam towards the inside. So that's going to be towards the long center block. So just press that and then press it with your fingers. You don't have to get the whole unit really straight. You just want to worry about the seam area. So do this for both sides of both of the blocks that you just made. And these are the last of the pieced sashings. So now we're just going to sew all of this on to the quilt top, and it's going to be massive. All right, let's finish up this quilt top. So lay your quilt top so that you have your top and your bottom the way you want it. Honestly, it should be a square right now, so if you want to switch it up, you can switch it up. But this is my top and bottom, and we're gonna work on the side seams first. So you can't see even a fraction of this really, but we're gonna do our best. So I'm working on the left side over here. I'm gonna grab one of my long piece strips that doesn't have that block from month number 1 on the side. So these are the shorter of the 4 long piece strips we have. These are the shorter ones. And we're gonna line it up so that the A strip goes against the center of the quilt top. And it should be the same size as your quilt top. It looks like it. So since we don't have any seams on this A strip, we're just gonna start at the top corner and fold it right sides together. Line up this top corner here and start pinning along this left side. All right, so we have the left side pinned. Now I'm just gonna scooch this over. Oh, it's so big. And we're gonna do the right side now. So again, this is the shorter of the 4 blocks. Lay it right side up, just like this, and then make sure that A strip is separating them, and we're gonna just flip it right side down to the right side of the center. And I'm just gonna start at 1 corner. If you can, spread this whole quilt out on a flat surface so you can really line it up. That would be ideal. But since I'm working on my table and my table is not nearly big enough to support this whole quilt, I just have to go piece by piece. Alrighty, we've got it pinned to the right and the left on the sides. Now we're just gonna sew along these really long edges at a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. side borders are added. Now we want to press the seam. See, we got to find those borders first. We want to press the seam behind the side borders we just added. Nope, that's not what we just did. And then I'm just going to press this with the seam closed first. And then I can open it up and finger press that seam once again behind this bigger side border. And you might have to kind of feel for it a bit before you press it. There we go. All right, once you get one side pressed, go ahead and repeat this with the other side. Okay, quilt top is now too big for my table. We have 2 more borders to add and then we can be done. So remember, these are your longer pieced borders that you made. And we're just going to add these along the top and the bottom of our quilt top. And once again, well, this time we can attach them at the seams on the sides first. So here's the top left corner. So you can see we have this white sashing that goes all the way around, and then we can just flip these right sides together. Line up this seam right here first. You have 2 seams you can line up right here. Get those together. And you can go along the top edge until you get to the other seams. So don't add too many pins along this top middle edge in case you have to adjust it a bit. And then once I get over here to the top right, I'll just pin those together. All right, and then you can go back, and if you need to readjust any of the pins in the middle, go ahead and do that. Just make sure you tug along this to make sure everything lines up. You don't want, like right now, my A block is quite a bit, you know, overhanging the bottom block. So we want to just make sure it's all lined up. That's what the pins are for. Okay, now let's flip this around. We're going to do the same thing on the bottom with our last long border. Whew. Ooh, this quilt is big. All right, I've got the top and the bottom pinned. I'm going to sew all this together at a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance, and for me, these will be the last borders I attach to this quilt. Once you have those borders on, now all we have to do is press it, and this can get a little difficult to sew it and press it because so much of it's just pulling off the table and away from the sewing machine. So I know for me right now, my arms and my shoulders are aching. This is not easy at this stage. So if you need to take a break, make sure you take a break. Maybe come back to it tomorrow. It will still be ready for you. All right, I'm gonna press my border up. Look how cool that looks. Doesn't that look cool? Look at that. That's neat. I like that. I like that like spiky look around the corner. So just gently press that seam behind the outer strip. If it kind of folds under the center and then folds back out towards the outer strip, that's fine. The reason we want to keep the seams the way they are right now is just because it makes it easier to quilt it. Once the seams kind of start twisting around behind the seams, they can get kind of bulky, but you already have some pretty bulky corners that you're gonna have to be paying attention to when you quilt this anyways. So it's not that big of a deal if the seam moves around a little bit. All right, so you can't really see all of it, can you? I am going to end here. Now the pattern does have you grab some more of your block color A sashing, and you're gonna sash around the entire four corners of your quilt. And that's gonna add a really lovely framing around it. However, I like it without the sashing. So I'm gonna leave off the sashing for this quilt top. This is how I'm kind of gonna make this quilt top more mine. I like the busyness just kind of bleeding off the edge into the binding. I think that looks cool. So I'm not adding the sashing, but if you were, you would just attach it like we did these pieces right here. It's gonna be a little bit longer than it needs to. I like to sew it on and then trim it down just like I did with these A blocks here. All right, I am not gonna be able to show you this whole quilt top in one shot, but holy guacamole. Look how cool that looks. Let's see if I can just scoot around so you can really get a good look at it. I'll be honest, I absolutely love the colors in this quilt because you don't really know how this is gonna look until you're done with it, right? It's a mystery quilt, so you pick your colorway, but you don't know which of the fabrics are gonna be used the most, which are gonna be used the least, how this is gonna all be. I mean, if we used pink where it's white on this quilt top, it would look completely different, right? So I really, really like how it all came together. I love all the little spiky details on it. It is massive. So if you made the large quilt, oh, this is a family size quilt, right? So I am leaving the sashing off the tops and the bottoms. Let me see if I can get somewhere where you can see it better. There we go. So yeah, I'm leaving the sashing off the tops and the bottoms because I like that. I like a more scrappy, kind of busy quilt. I feel like by adding the sashing around the very, very edge, we're creating like this really beautiful frame that kind of makes it look like a piece of art. But that's not how I want it to look. I want it to look busy, and I've already got so many really nice little framing details inside all over the place, so I don't think it needs it. So that's something you can do. I mean, if you don't want to add the sashing, you don't have to. Let's pull my sleeves back down. These things are probably full of pins right now. So if you're doing the quilt along, I hope that you're having a great, great time. I know that I'm really happy with how this all came together. I've had quite a few people ask me, is this a good thing for a beginner quilter? And part of me says yes, because you don't have to cut anything out, which is really helpful, and you break it up into small steps so you're not kind of overwhelmed with everything at once. However, another part of me says no, because part of the really fun thing, if you're just brand new to quilting, you've never made a quilt in your life, you've been thinking about it, you want to do it, half of the fun of it is picking a pattern and then picking your fabric, going to the fabric store, picking out all the things you like, and then seeing it all kind of come together the way you imagined it to come together. And with a mystery quilt like this, you really don't know how it's going to come. So while this quilt is absolutely beautiful, I mean, it is a very, very beautiful, beautiful quilt, it's not a personalized quilt, right? I didn't pick it to be like this. It's just kind of surprised me. So it's fun, but it's not like a quilt that I would make for a family member, you know, when you have kind of a more personal idea. So I would say a quilt along like this is best for experienced quilters who just kind of want to have something that they're working on throughout the year. Like for me, I love quilting, but I make a lot of bags. That's mostly what I do all the time. I don't really have time to really just sit down and do a quilt from beginning to end. So this is perfect for me because at the end of the year, I have a quilt done, so I still got to do that. So that's just something to think about. I mean, it's gonna turn out really nice. You know, the people at Cotton Cuts, they know what they're doing. They're not gonna pick fabric that won't go together well. It's gonna turn out beautiful, and the pattern writer has done an amazing job with this quilt. But if you wanna make it really personal, this might not be the best way to do that, but it is very pretty. So I hope that you're having a great day. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. Have a great New Year's 2022. Nobody jinx it. I'm not even gonna say anything about it. Get out there and make something. Bye guys.